Good evening. Good evening. I welcome you to our Maundy, Thursday, Good Friday service. And this is something we have never done before. Halfway through the service, we will end Maundy, Thursday, and we will tear down the altar, bring out the cross, and let go of all the things we've been talking about all during Lent. Letting go of our disappointments, losses, time with loved ones, anything that you've been feeling over this past year or so, depression, a way to start healing, a way to start moving forward. So that's what the plans are for tonight. And also, those of you who are reading, please see who is ahead of you so that you can be ready to go right away. If it's a hymn, the last verse or so of the hymn, be right here at the podium. Everything will be read from here. And we just want to keep it that it's flowing and so forth. So I was asked to hold Greg Urick in prayers tonight. I also asked you to hold Martha Weibley's sister in prayer, and any others that might be weighing heavy on our hearts, all those on our prayer list, and many more. So, tonight's service is a time for personal reflection. Everything that we will say tonight is in your program. This is not a bulletin tonight, it's a program. We'll be reading from Scripture. And then also I'll be doing a little reflecting after certain ones. And there'll be questions throughout what I reflect to you. And I hope you will, try to pull those questions in and take this home with you. And maybe sometime in the near future, read over those. Like I said, it's a time for reflection. Maybe you want to close your eyes. I just like to say, let it all go tonight. Let it all go. This is a time to have your focus on being, with Jesus. Sitting at that table with him and the disciples. Having your feet washed by him. Having communion with him. Then follow him down the Via Dolorosa, where he's carrying that cross. What it's like up on being on the cross with a couple of the criminals on either side of you. That's what I hope you can feel tonight. Letting go of everything else that's going on in your life and finding the time to be with Jesus. That's the journey for tonight. And letting go of everything. So that's what I like to hope that you can dig deep into your soul. And my final thing I'd like to say is just let yourself detach from all outside. Leave it in God's hands. Detach from everything that is not God. And at the end of the service, I will ask you to leave quietly, in silence. We will turn the lights back off again, so you'll need your candle. And also in the pew in the back, so please leave that way. If you're coming back in, you can come back in. The side door, as far as I know, is unlocked. And take a cross with you. The willing workers made crosses for folks using the glass, so please take a cross home with you. As you can see, Faye went to the extra effort of putting a little tab there. We're getting pretty fancy around here. She'll have us spoiled before we know what happens, so you know where you can find your music for this evening. So, and we're going to do something that we've been singing all Lent, our holy vessels. This culminating moment of our worship series invites us to consider a commission from Christ to his disciples to heal the sick, raise the dead, cleanse lepers, and cast out demons. These are the very things his disciples have seen him do, and that we have sought to witness for our own lives in this Lenten season of recovery. What will we do with this commission? How will we address ongoing pain with hope and conviction, even though we ourselves are healed and yet still healing? How do we accept the freedom Jesus is offering?
Then Jesus summoned his 12 disciples and gave them authority over unclean spirits, to cast them out and to cure every disease and every sickness. These are the names of the 12 apostles. First, Simon, also known as Peter, and his brother Andrew. James, son of Zebedee, and his brother John. Philip and Bartholomew. Thomas and Matthew, the tax collector. James, son of Alphaeus, and Thaddeus, Simon the Cananaean, and Judas Iscariot, the one who betrayed him. These 12 Jesus sent out with the following instructions: Go nowhere among the Gentiles, and enter no town of the Samaritans, but go rather to the lost sheep of the house of Israel. As you go, proclaim the good news. The kingdom of heaven has come near. Cure the sick, raise the dead, cleanse the lepers, cast out demons. You received without payment, give without payment.
Jesus has been teaching, healing, touching, and transforming lives for 3 years. His presence in the midst of suffering has offered hope to so many, and yet his ways had also challenged the power of privilege. As we have seen in our Lenten journey, his actions have crossed boundaries of stigma in so many ways. When healing was needed, no one was left outside of compassion, and this threatened to upset the hierarchy of things, touching the untouchables, mixing with folks outside or below his status, raising up the faith of outsiders and nobodies had gotten attention. The last shall be first was not sitting well with the first of society, government, and religion. His popularity was evident the day he and disciples set foot in Jerusalem for the Passover festival, as we call it Palm Sunday. Those in seats of power who wanted to keep the peace, even in unjust, unholy, unfair, unseeing peace, were all talking about the problem. Crowds where Jesus was teaching in Jerusalem were infiltrated by leaders seeking to catch him in controversy. Time and again, Jesus answered with truth and faith, leaving the naysayers speechless.
When the Pharisees heard that he had silenced the Sadducees, they gathered together, and one of them, a lawyer, asked him a question to test him. Teacher, which commandment in the law is the greatest? He said to him, You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, and with all your soul, and with all your mind. This is the greatest and first commandment. And the second is like it. You shall love your neighbor as yourself. On these two commandments hang all the law and all the prophets.
Let us rise within the garden. You may be seated. Let us bring our voices together. You take no delight in the instruction of your creation, your people. Our own broken edges, sharp and raw, contribute to the pain sometimes, especially during prolonged difficulty. We find ourselves struggling. We cannot manage it on our own, yet we try, forgetting to turn to you, forgetting to turn to each other, forgetting the power you offer, the commission you give, to turn our tears to balm, to use our broken edges to elevate new realities of justice and hope. It all feels overwhelming, and so we look away. Help us, healer. Show us our connection to your healing power. Forgive our disbelief. Move us to move, one step at a time, toward greater care for one another. In this silence, we sense and acknowledge our yearning for wholeness.
Now while Jesus was at Bethany in the house of Simon the leper, a woman came to him with an alabaster jar of very costly ointment, and she poured it on his head as he sat at the table. But when the disciples saw it, they were angry and said, "Why this waste? For this ointment could have been sold for a large sum and the money given to the poor." But Jesus, aware of this, said to them, "Why do you trouble this woman? She has performed a good service for me. For you will always have the poor with you, but you will not always have me. By pouring this ointment on my body, she has prepared me for burial. Truly I tell you, wherever this good news is proclaimed in the whole world, what she has done will be told in remembrance of her."
Oil was used in many ways by ancient peoples. Mixed with various herbal properties, it served as a healing balm, bringing increased blood flow and salve to the body. It was used in practical purposes as well, as a skin softener and odor reducing and cleansing practices. And it was used as an agent of significance in many rituals. The story of this woman with the alabaster jar of oil is a symbolic ritual action of great power. The pouring of oil on Jesus' head stood in the traditions of anointing leaders, kings to be specific on the head. Many of the symbols in the story of Holy Week point to the sovereignty of Jesus, most of them carried out by unlikely and so-called unsanctioned people. This ritual of oil on the head of Jesus was carried out by an unnamed woman whose action of love, devotion, and the clear message that this teacher was her sovereign forever got angry reactions even from those who claimed to love Jesus most. Are we like those first disciples, in danger of withholding our resources of extravagant love? Do we hesitate to proclaim the sovereignty, the reign of love and justice, equity and relief, healing and wholeness, even as we proclaim to be disciples of the one who is love itself? Then Jesus turns the meaning of her anointing act on his head, so to speak. He recalls another use of oil on the body common in that time, that of embalming the dead. This must have been a shock to the disciples beyond even the shock that they had already expressed. His message was clear. Now was not the time to worry about the treasure. The true treasure was in relationship, the one they had right before them right now.
Then one of the 12, who is called Judas Iscariot, went to the chief priests and said, "What will you give me if I betray him to you?" They paid him 30 pieces of silver, and from that moment he began to look for an opportunity to betray him. On the first day of unleavened bread, the disciples came to Jesus saying, "Where do you want us to make the preparations for you to eat the Passover?" He said, "Go into the city to a certain man and say to him, 'The teacher says, my time is near. I will keep the Passover at your house with my disciples.'" So the disciples did as Jesus had directed them, and they prepared the Passover meal.
Where's your silver? While Matthew's gospel omits the details of the arrival of the disciples for the meal, we know from other gospel accounts that the customary washing of feet upon arrival took on a particular significance that night. Not only practical, but symbolic. The washing of feet in the ancient world indicated status, with servants washing the feet of their masters, pupils washing the feet of their teachers, children and wives washing the feet of the man of the house. Jesus was all these things of reverence and honor to those gathered that night. And yet we know he washed their feet, rejecting the norms and indicating a new order of things, a new way to honor one another regardless of status. We do not know if Jesus' washing that night of the Last Supper was followed by an anointing with the fragrance of oil, but we do know that this extra act of tending to feet was done to express the highest form of respect and honor in the ancient world.
When it was evening, he took his place with the 12, and while they were eating, he said, "Truly I tell you, one of you will betray me." And they become greatly distressed and began to say to him, one after another, "Surely not I, Lord." He answered, "The one who has dipped his hand into the bowl with me will betray me. The Son of Man goes as it is written of him, but woe to that one by whom the Son of Man is betrayed. It would have been better for that one not to have been born." Judas, who betrayed him, said, "Surely not I, Rabbi." He replied, "You have said so." While they were eating, Jesus took a loaf of bread, and after blessing it, he broke it, giving it to the disciples, and said, "Take, eat, this is my body." Then he took a cup, and after giving thanks, he gave it to them, saying, "Drink from it, all of you, for this is my blood of the covenant, which is poured out for many for the forgiveness of sin. I tell you, I will never again drink of this fruit of the vine until that day when I drink it new with you in my Father's kingdom."
Let us rise, let us break bread together. You may be seated.
When they had sung the hymn, they went out to the Mount of Olives. Then Jesus said to them, "You will all become deserters because of me this night. For it is written, I will strike the shepherd, and the sheep of the flock will be scattered. But after I am raised up, I will go ahead of you to Galilee." Peter said to him, "Though all become deserters because of you, I will never desert you." Jesus said to him, "Truly, I tell you, this very night, before the cock crows, you will deny me 3 times. Peter said to him, Even though I must die with you, I will not deny you. And so said all the disciples.
I'll ask you to join in with me. I will never desert you. I will never deny you. I will never desert you. I will never deny you. I will never desert you. I will never deny you.
Then Jesus went with them to a place called Gethsemane, and he said to his disciples, "Sit here while I go over there and pray." He took with him Peter and the two sons of Zebedee, and began to be grieved and agitated. Then he said to them, "I am deeply grieved, even to death. Remain here and stay awake with me." And going a little farther, he threw himself on the ground and prayed, "My Father, if it is possible, let this cup pass from me. Yet not what I want, but what you want." Then he came to the disciples and found them sleeping. And he said to Peter, "So could you not stay awake for me 1 hour? Stay awake and pray that you may not come into the time of trial. The spirit indeed is willing, but the flesh is weak."
Let us take this moment, as Jesus did, to dare ask the questions that come from the most broken places of our souls. Our deepest grieving. It is in acknowledging what feels most broken, most cynical, most impossible, that healing can occur. We must address the roots of our ill in order for the salve of God's desire for us to enter. You are invited to a time of reflection, becoming awake, staying awake to the deep need within us and around us.
Again he went away for the second time and prayed, "My Father, if this cannot pass unless I drink it, your will be done." Again he came and found them sleeping, for their eyes were heavy. So leaving them again, he went away and prayed for the third time, saying the same words. Then he came to the disciples and said to them, "Are you still sleeping and taking your rest? See, the hour is at hand, and the Son of Man is betrayed into the hands of sinners. Get up, let us be going. See, my betrayer is at hand." While he was still speaking, Judas, one of the 12, arrived. With him was a large crowd with swords and clubs from the chief priests and the elders of the people. Now the betrayer had given them a sign, saying, "The one I will kiss is the man. Arrest him."
At once he came up to Jesus and said, "Greetings, Rabbi," and kissed him. Jesus said to him, "Friend, do what you are here to do." Then he came and laid hands on Jesus and arrested him. Suddenly, one of those with Jesus put his hand on his sword, drew it, and struck the slave of the high priest, cutting off his ear. Then Jesus said to him, "Put your sword back into its place, for all who take the sword will perish by the sword. Do you think that I cannot appeal to my Father, and he will at once send me more than 12 legions of angels? But how then would the scriptures be fulfilled, which say it must happen in this way?" At this hour Jesus said to the crowds, "Have you come out with swords and clubs to arrest me as though I were a bandit? Day after day I sat in the temple teaching, and you did not arrest me. But all this has taken place so that the scriptures of the prophets may be fulfilled." Then all the disciples deserted him and fled.
Let us rise with "I Need Thee" every hour. I need thee every hour, most gracious Lord. No tender voice like thine can peace afford. I need thee, oh, I need thee. Every hour I need thee. Oh, bless me now, my Savior. I come to thee. I need thee every hour. Stay thou nearby. Temptations lose their power when thou art nigh. I need thee, oh, I need thee. Every hour I need thee. Oh, bless me now, my Savior. I come to thee. I need thee every hour, in joy or pain. Come quickly and above, or life is vain. I need thee, oh, I need thee. Every hour I need thee. Oh, bless me now, my Savior. I come to thee. I need thee every hour. Most holy one I love. Thy name, blessed Son. I need thee, oh, I need thee. You may be seated.
Those who had arrested Jesus took him to Caiaphas, the high priest, in whose house the scribes and the elders had gathered. But Peter was following him at a distance, as far as the courtyard of the high priest. And going inside, he sat with the guards in order to see how this would end. Now the chief priest and the whole council were looking for false testimony against Jesus, so that they might put him to death. But they found none, though many false witnesses came forward. At last, two came forward and said, "This fellow said, 'I am able to destroy the temple of God, and to build it in 3 days?" The high priest stood up and said, "Have you no answer? What is it that they testify against you?" But Jesus was silent. Then the high priest said to him, "I put you under oath before the living God. Tell us if you are the Messiah, the Son of God." Jesus said to him, "You have said so. But I tell you, from now on you will see the Son of Man seated at the right hand of power and is coming on the clouds of heaven." Then the high priest tore his clothes and said, "He has blasphemed. Why do we still need witnesses? You have now heard his blasphemy. What is your verdict?" They answered, "He deserves death." Then they spat in his face and struck him, and some slapped him, saying, "Prophesy to us, you Messiah. Who is it that struck you?"
Now Peter was sitting outside in the courtyard. A servant girl came to him and said, "You also were with Jesus the Galilean." But he denied it before all of them, saying, "I do not know what you are talking about." When he went out on the porch, another servant girl saw him, and she said to the bystanders, "This man was with Jesus of Nazareth." Again he denied it with an oath, "I do not know the man." After a little while, the bystanders came up and said to Peter, "Certainly you are also one of them, for your accent betrays you." And then he began to curse, and he swore an oath, "I do not know the man." At that moment the cock crowed, and then Peter remembered what Jesus had said, "Before the cock crows, you will deny me 3 times." And he went out and wept bitterly.
When morning came, all the chief priests and the elders of the people conferred together against Jesus in order to bring about his death. They bound him, led him away, and handed him over to Pilate, the governor. When Judas, his betrayer, saw that Jesus was condemned, he repented and brought back the 30 pieces of silver to the chief priests and the elders. He said, "I have sinned by betraying innocent blood." But they said, "What is that to us? See to it yourself." Throwing down the pieces of silver in the temple, he departed, and he went and hanged himself. But the chief priests, taking the pieces of silver, said, "It is not lawful to put them into the treasury, since they are blood money." After conferring together, they used them to buy the potter's field as a place to bury foreigners. For this reason, that field has been called the Field of Blood to this day. Then was fulfilled what had been spoken through the prophet Jeremiah. And they took the 30 pieces of silver, the price of the one whom a price had been set, on whom some of the people of Israel had set a price, and they gave them for the potter's field, as the Lord commanded me.
Now Jesus stood before the governor, and the governor asked him, "Are you the king of the Jews?" Jesus said, "You say so." But when he was accused by the chief priests and the elders, he did not answer. Then Pilate said to him, "Do you not hear how many accusations they make against you?" But he gave him no answer, not even to a single charge, so that the governor was greatly amazed. Now at the festival, the governor was accustomed to release a prisoner for the crowd, anyone whom they wanted. At that time, they had a notorious prisoner named Barabbas. So after they had gathered, Pilate said to them, "Whom do you want me to release for you? Barabbas, or Jesus, who is called the Messiah?" For he realized that it was out of jealousy that they had handed him over. While he was sitting on the judgment seat, his wife sent word to him, "Have nothing to do with that innocent man, for today I have suffered a great deal because of a dream about him." Now the chief priests and the elders persuaded the crowd to ask for Barabbas and to have Jesus killed. The governor again said to them, "Which of the two do you want me to release for you?" And they said, "Barabbas." Pilate said to them, "Then what should I do with Jesus, who is called Messiah?" All of them said, "Let him be crucified." Then he asked, "Why, what evil has he done?" But they all shouted more, "Let him be crucified." So when Pilate saw that he could do nothing, but rather a riot was beginning, he took some water and washed his hands before the crowd, saying, "I am innocent of this man's blood. See to it yourselves." Then the people as a whole answered, "His blood be on us and on our children." So he released Barabbas for them, and after flogging Jesus, he handed him over to be crucified.
Then the soldiers of the governor took Jesus into the governor's headquarters, and they gathered the whole cohort around him. They stripped him and put a scarlet robe on him, and after twisting some thorns into a crown, they put it on his head. They put a reed in his right hand and knelt before him and mocked him, saying, "Hail, King of the Jews!" They spat on him and took the reed and struck him on the head. After mocking him, they stripped him of the robe and put his own clothes on him. Then they led him away to crucify him. As they went out, they came upon a man from Cyrene named Simon. They compelled this man to carry his cross, And when they came to a place called Golgotha, which means place of a skull, they offered him wine to drink, mixed with gall. But when he tasted it, he would not drink it. And when they had crucified him, they divided his clothes among themselves by casting lots. And then they sat down there and kept watch over him. Over his head they put the charge against him which read, "This is Jesus, the King of the Jews." Then 2 bandits were crucified with him, one on his right and one on his left. Those who passed by derided him, shaking their heads and saying, "You who would destroy the temple and build it in 3 days, save yourself. If you are the Son of God, come down from the cross." In the same way, the chief priests also, along with scribes and elders, were mocking him, saying, "He saved others. He cannot save himself. He is the King of Israel. Let him come down from the cross now, and we will believe in him. He trusts in God. Let God deliver him now, if he wants to, for he said, 'I am God's son.'" The bandits who were crucified with him also taunted him in the same way. From noon on, darkness came over the whole land until 3 in the afternoon. And about 3 o'clock, Jesus cried with a loud voice, "Eli, Eli, lema sabachthani," that is, my God, why have you forsaken me?" When some of the bystanders heard it, they said, "This man is calling for Elijah." At once one of them ran and got a sponge, filled it with sour wine, put it on a stick, and gave it to him to drink. But the others said, "Wait, let us see whether Elijah will come to save him." Then Jesus cried again with a loud voice and breathed his last. At that moment, the curtain of the temple was torn in two from top to bottom. The earth shook and the rocks were split. The tombs also were opened, and many bodies of the saints who had fallen asleep were raised. After his resurrection, they came out of the tombs and entered the holy city and appeared to many. Now, when the centurion and those with him who were keeping watch over Jesus saw the earthquake and what took place, they were terrified and said, "Truly, this man was God's Son."
Many women were also there, looking on from a distance. They had followed Jesus from Galilee and had provided for him. Among them were Mary Magdalene and Mary, the mother of James and Joseph, and a mother of the sons from Zebedee. When it was evening, there came a rich man from Arimathea named Joseph, who was also the disciple of Jesus. He went to Pilate and asked for the body of Jesus. Then Pilate ordered it to be given to him. So Joseph took the body and wrapped it in clean linen cloth and laid it in his own new tomb, which had hewn in the rock. He then rolled a great stone to the door of the tomb and went away. Mary Magdalene and the other Mary were there sitting opposite of the tomb.
We are inspired by the connection of healing and death through the common use of myrrh in the story of Jesus. In this Good Friday moment, are there things that need to die within us to make room for the resurrection of our lives? Are there things we can lovingly lay to rest that are no longer needed? Indeed, that may stand in the way of our recovery of wholeness. What can you let go of in this moment? Old hurts and disappointments of the past that need forgiveness. Perhaps God has already forgiven, but you cannot forgive yourself. What is embalmed in death is made new in resurrected life. This is what we believe. This is what we know because it is what Jesus promised. I am the resurrection and the life. Those who believe in me, though they die, will live. Let us rise for the old rugged cross. You may be seated.
The next day, that is, after the day of preparation, the chief priests and the Pharisees gathered before Pilate and said, "Sir, we remember what that impostor said while he was still alive. After 3 days I will rise again. Therefore command the tomb to be made secure until the 3rd day. Otherwise his disciples may go and steal him away and tell the people, 'He has been raised from the dead,' and the last deception would be worse than the first." Pilate said to them, "You have a guard of soldiers. Go, make it as secure as you can." So they went with the guard and made the tomb secure by sealing the stone.
Jesus has taken on our brokenness, our loss, our disappointments, our fear, and so much more. He's taken it all on so we can find wholeness. So as we prepare ourselves for Easter morning, what no one else realized was really true. Let us, as we prepare, spend some time tomorrow in silence and ask yourself, what do I believe? Because I still believe as Christians that still is our challenge. Do we know who Jesus really is? So now go in silence, but not in despair. May the words of Jesus ring in your ears. I am with you always. And may the Spirit hover, move, and deliver salve to your soul until we meet again on that day of resurrection. Amen.